Welcome, everyone, into the broadcast. This is going to be an exciting show here on FL Teams. We are going to break down quarterbacks and whether they should be in the Hall of Fame or the Hall of Good. This is going to be a series. We're going to break down many positions, but today it is quarterback edition. I'm Mike Edelman, founder of FL Teams. I'm here with EJ Farbman and Jeremiah Hensley. Guys, are you excited? Let's start with EJ. What are your thoughts on this show?
Dude, I'm ready, man. We break down so much current events and the nows of sports that are going on, whether it's football, hockey, baseball, whatever. But this is going to be fun to kind of turn back the clock a little bit because these are us being a little bit older than you and Jeremiah being older than me. These are players that we grew up watching in their primes. So I think this is going to be should be more entertaining for the viewers, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Jeremiah?
Dude, absolutely. Because what I think it is you can look at Hall of Fame and break it down stat by stat, but I think with us looking at it, you're going to get a different view, right, of what kind of an impact the player made and where that's at. So it's intriguing, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So with that said, let's get right into it, guys. Look, is this quarterback Hall of Fame or Hall of Good? We're going to start off right away with Michael Vick, who has the most career rushing yards by a QB in NFL history and the most single-season rushing yards by a QB in NFL history. This is a guy who's a speedster, yet he had a heck of an arm. And I guess we'll start off right away with EJ. Should Michael Vick be in the Hall of Fame or the Hall of Good?
It's people say Michael Vick changed the game from the quarterback perspective, and we had Randall Cunninghams, we had Warren Moons before him. He's built differently than those guys. He wasn't quite as tall. He was a little bit more elusive. For me, the 2 years in jail for the dogfighting stuff really derailed his career and halted some numbers that could have been good. I mean, maybe even a Super Bowl chance. Who knows? Yeah. For me, Mike Vick goes down in my Hall of Good, just short of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, man, I think that you can't let go of the 2 years in jail with the dog thing. I mean, it was such a big deal. Mm-hmm. And outside of that, I mean, yeah, his legs were great, but I mean, the guy never won anything really. I mean, you fill up a stat book, but what did you really win? And absolutely, EJ, when they say he rewrote the game, man, Randall Cunningham did that way before. Mm-hmm. Ken Stabler did that before Cunningham. You know what I'm saying? So to me, Michael Vick may not even follow my Hall of Good. I don't think there's a shot. Michael Vick to me is nowhere near.
Okay, so with that said, we got 2 Hall of Goods for Michael Vick. Next up, Phil Simms, who set team records for the most passes completed and attempted in one game. He also has the record for highest completion percentage in a Super Bowl. He completed 88% of his passes, a record that still stands. So we'll start off with Jeremiah this time. Is Phil Simms in the Hall of Fame or the Hall of Good?
He's in the Hall of Fame. He should have already been, quite honestly. 2 Super Bowl championships, a Super Bowl MVP, what he did with that team and the way that he led them. And then you hit like you said, the 88% completion. In big games, Phil Simms played big. And that's the mark of a quarterback. I mean, you can go with yardage, you can go with touchdowns. At the end of the day, are you a winner? And Phil Simms is a winner on the biggest level. Should have already been in. Hopefully it's happening soon. But Phil Simms, Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to echo that, I mean, when you pair, I take Pro Bowls and I throw them out the window. I don't put maybe NFL first team, all different. What those things state a stronger case. Anytime I see Pro Bowl, I kind of toss that out. It's taken with a grain of salt. But the 2 Super Bowl champions, the Super Bowl MVP, obviously he backed up one of the Super Bowls by being the best one in that Super Bowl, which not everyone gets a chance to do. And then the all-time passer rating at 78.8. There's numbers you just can't lie with. And to Jeremiah's credit, when you needed a quarterback to show up on the Giants, Phil Simms showed up. So yeah, I go Hall of Fame. A surprise he's not in there already.
And when you think about it too, the era he played in, man. I mean, that was the Chicago Bears tough defense. That was the Niners, the Cowboys. They were heavy hitters, dude.
That was also the era. That was also the era where quarterback longevity should have been shorter because they were allowed to take a player's head off. They were allowed to come at the knees. Yeah. Now, I mean, you can essentially put red jerseys on all the quarterbacks out there now because you can't even blow on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, two Hall of Fames here.
Perfect. All right, next up, we're moving along here. This is great.
Yeah.
All right, we got a current quarterback now, and this, unlike the last few quarterbacks we've talked about, is kind of a prediction one. I mean, the others are predicting, right? Because they're not in the Hall of Fame yet. But Patrick Mahomes isn't retired yet. He still has many years left. So in your answers, you could discuss two things. You can discuss if Patrick Mahomes retired now, would he make the Hall of Fame? And what are you predicting for his upcoming years? And will that propel him to be in the Hall of Fame? So this is Patrick Mahomes. We all know who he is. He broke a tie with Hall of Famers Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, and Dan Marino for the most career games with 5 touchdown throws and 400 or more passing yards. He became the youngest quarterback ever to be named Super Bowl MVP, and he reached 10,000 career passing yards in 34 games. I mean, I can go down the list. There's so many more records he broke, but we're going to leave it at that for time purposes. EJ, is Patrick Mahomes going to be in the Hall of Fame or Hall of Good?
I think he'll inevitably be there. The difference between him and Mike Vick and Phil Simms, obviously, is, we're projecting if they're going to be in or not, but their career's already done. They can't put up any more numbers. They can't appear in any more Super Bowls. So if we were to look at what's on this list right now, and we're assuming that he even reaches half of the rest of this that's on there, the potential is half of what it is now. I'd definitely say Hall of Fame. And it's not like he's throwing it to the backyardigans, right? He's got a heck of a tight end. He's got had a heck of a receiver in Tyreek Hill, a heck of a schemer and coach and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. So if he keeps going, obviously the way he is, and this next season or so will be telling because it's a new cast coming in. Just by looking at these numbers, projection wise, yeah, definitely. I think he'll be in the Hall of Fame.
It's funny. We're reading down all these accolades, and I guess I get too much tunnel vision during the NFL season because you don't really stop and think about it. I mean, I just expect the Chiefs to be good and to go, but I don't expect, breaking the record with the most 5 touchdown games and all of the other stuff, Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP. If you walked away right now, I'd say, look, in that career shot, he's a Hall of Famer. I think it's going to be interesting, like EJ said, what happens now without Tyreek, changing it up a little bit. And then really there was kind of a letdown last year. I mean, there was a little bit of a letdown with where he was. I mean, I think he came out like bright, I mean, just like the brightest star in the sky. But what if it dims quick? It's a 50-50, but I mean, something tragic would have to happen. He would completely have to fall off the edge.
Yeah.
Like RG3, he'd have to have that kind of meltdown not to be a Hall of Famer. Yeah. I mean, I think there's no question just from what he's done, he's in. I see complacency, though, just on a side note. There's something about Mahomes that I just saw complacency. I wonder if that'll change.
I do, too. I feel like he is okay with what he's done, with the records that he set. And I don't think he's going to coast by any means. I still think he's going to put his best foot forward. But, how do you top 50 touchdowns in a year? How do you top Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP? You do it again, but those awards are the highest of the high for their respected areas. I feel like, he could look at that and be like, hey, if I just keep on half the pace, I'm going to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think he also wants to prove that he could be an elite quarterback without the one and only Tyreek Hill, who's now on my Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
He now has Juju, but we can all agree he's not as good as Tyreek.
Right.
All right, next up is another current quarterback, Russell Wilson. And as we know, Russell Wilson, for the first time in his career, is not on the Seattle Seahawks. He's now on the Denver Broncos. And with that said, Russell Wilson has the most wins by any quarterback in their first 7 seasons in the NFL, most passing yards in a playoff game by a rookie, and the most fourth quarter touchdown passes in a season. He had 16. This is an interesting one. He's towards the later stages of his career. We don't know how many years he has left, but this year he is kind of having a new beginning on a new team. So let's start off with Jeremiah here. Is Russell Wilson in the Hall of Fame or the Hall of Good?
I kind of mentioned that, stats will be one way, but we're looking at it differently than we're at a ballot. Here's my deal. Would I take Russell Wilson to win a game for me in the fourth quarter in the Super Bowl? Yes, I would. Right. I mean, he's that guy, a Super Bowl champion. The way that he played in Seattle and what he did there, coming from a late round pick, the numbers that he's put up, Russell Wilson, to me, maybe the stats are still there. I mean, they're very good. His touchdown to interception is kind of insane. It'll be interesting to see what he does with Denver. But I think a guy like Russell Wilson, if he doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, that's going to be a tragedy. I think he should be a Hall of Famer. I'd go with Russ. Let Russ cook.
Yeah, I mean, so when he came to the NFL, right? He was a late round selection, not 5, 6, or 7, but 3rd or 4th round selection. He set the field on fire, right? His first handful of years, right? And so you look at that, and similar to Patrick Mahomes, you're like, there's no doubt he's going to make another Super Bowl appearance. He's going to probably win him another ring. But then I'd say the last, I know his numbers show, but from a win percentage standpoint, his last 3 years or so, I wouldn't say they've disappeared, because they start the first 6 games or so as like if the season were to end the first 6 games, the Seahawks are Super Bowl contenders every year, right? If not, maybe Super Bowl favorites. They play hot for the first 6 to 8 games, and then they just kind of disappear. Russell kind of goes into a shell. DK disappears. Running game goes away, and so I think, obviously, with just a projection, what he does in Denver with the weapons he has now. He's got 2 ridiculously good running backs. He's got a trio of receivers. If you count Tim Fitzpatrick in there too, the defense is still growing, but I think it's going to be really, really telling. I think he gets in. I think he will be a Hall of Famer, but I think that these next however many seasons in Denver are going to tell a whole lot about, if he's first ballot, if he's, 4 years waiting, if he's 5 years waiting. And then, but I do, at the end of the day, I do think he will be in the Hall of Fame.
What's interesting is he going to be Peyton Manning in Denver?
Sure,
how you switch
right.
over and you go there, or are you going to be one of those guys that switches teams and you just fall into oblivion? And 3 years from now, we're talking about Russell Wilson being on his 3rd team in 4 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be telling in Denver.
Yeah.
And it's also going to be interesting if he becomes similar to what Tom Brady became. I know more people hated him when he went to the Bucs, and I think more people liked him when he went to the Bucs. So is Russell Wilson going to be more liked? Is he going to be more hated? I mean, again, it depends on what team you like, but Tom Brady was a little bit more, he expressed more when he was on the Bucs. So we'll see what happens to Russell Wilson.
I think with Russell Wilson too, like, he's not going into a poor man's group. He has talent to work with, probably more so than he's had with Seattle in quite a long time before, the DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett era. I know he had Jermaine Kearse and he had Doug Baldwin, but Jeremy Jeudy is a young star in the making. Cortland Sutton, we just haven't seen his potential because I think he's been handcuffed by Drew Lock being there. And then you have Tim Fitzpatrick underneath, who blew up last year for the most part, at least from a fantasy perspective, week to week. So it's not like it's like, well, if he flops, look what they gave him. He's got some potent weapons, and then he's got the two studs out of the backfield, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. So if this doesn't come to fruition in some successful point of view, I think that could be a knock on him and the division he's in. If he's making it through that division year in, year out, I think that's gotta play for something in his resume.
100%, man.
I know Jeremiah will like this as a UNC fan, but Javonte Williams is a heck of a running back. I can argue with someone all day that he's a top 10 running back in the NFL. We do need to see more, so I'll accept that, but I think he's a top 10 running back. But
I think he will be. I think he will be.
And
look, we got snaked on that. He was supposed to be a Dolphin, dude. He was supposed to be a Dolphin, and they jumped us and took him. And he is an animal. And we barely saw what he could do last year because Gordon was in front of him. I don't think that's the case this year. Russell Wilson's going to have the best running game he's had since Sean Alexander. Well, I'm sorry, he didn't have Sean Alexander, since Marshawn Lynch.
And really, and to be fair, Marshawn Lynch can't do the things out of the backfield that Melvin Gordon and Javonte can do together. So he was, he was a little handicapped there too, because the accessibility for what Marshawn can do isn't comparable to what Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams can do.
Yep.
And we could always put Javonte Williams on our Hall of Fame or Hall of Good running back edition.
A year in. A year in.
All right, next up, you have to put him on here. He's not in the Hall of Fame yet. Recently retired. It's the one and only New Orleans Saints legend, Drew Brees. Now, he did not spend his whole career on the Saints. He did spend a bit of time on the Chargers. But yes, he's mostly well known on the Saints. Drew Brees set a lot of records. Now, Tom Brady broke a few of them, but Brees was still the first quarterback to throw for 80,000 yards in NFL history. And Brees had 12 consecutive seasons of 4,000 plus passing yards, the longest streak in NFL history. And he missed the 13th season by 8 yards, which is kind of funny. So, EJ, we'll start with you here. Is Drew Brees in the Hall of Fame or the Hall of Good?
Oh, first ballot Hall of Fame. No doubt. I think if he would have won another one of the 2 Super Bowls he was in, I think it would have, but I still don't think there's any question to it. The longevity, the shoulder injury that he came back from out in San Diego, the Chargers. And to be fair, he hasn't had the weapons that everyone says he has either. He had Marcus Colston, who was a big time player. Jimmy Graham was probably, aside from Michael Thomas now, a tight end. Jimmy Graham was probably his best outlet in any part of the field for a handful of years. I know Reggie Bush was there. We didn't really see out of Reggie Bush what everyone wanted to, what USC saw out of him. But for what Drew Brees did, him and Brady going back and forth on a record here, a record there, a record here, a record there. For me anyway, he's first ballot, no question.
When I think about Hall of Famers, I think about my son, and like when my son's in his 20s or 30s, who do I want him to look back at, right? And see what football was during this era. Drew Brees is one of those guys. Drew Brees is iconic. And everything that he did, not just winning on the field, but the way that he stepped up in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. I know all that stuff doesn't play in the Hall of Fame, but Brees is just that guy. Broke Dan Marino's touchdown record, and again, got it broke. But no, Brees is first ballot, man. He's a guy that I want this generation to look back on and say, how do you play football? And Drew Brees is that guy. And he did it with tons of haters. He's short. His hands are too small. He's blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
He was everything that wasn't supposed to succeed, and he just hammered it, man.
Well, he was battling Doug Flutie for a while in San Diego. A lot of people don't remember that. There was actually a legitimate QB competition between him and Doug Flutie down in San Diego. Like you said, the physical knocks on him. He is a prime example that arm strength does not win you ball games all the time, right? You have to know where to put it. You have to have a rapport with the receivers. And I don't think there's many QBs out there, past or present, that were able to develop the rapport with their receivers like he was. So, yeah, I mean, first ballot, no questions asked.
Look, dude, and I've always had an envious look because the worst doctor in the history of the NFL somehow in Miami said that Drew Brees' shoulder was worse than Dante Culpepper's knee. Okay? Yeah. Like, we were there. Like, it was Culpepper Brees, and we were like, no, we're going to take Culpepper. That worked beautifully.
And it's not like either that Drew Brees had 3/4 of these records, and then his shoulder went out, and then he really tapered off. He had that shoulder injury before all this took off. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like his name was in the league, right? But that shoulder injury, the one that they said you'll never throw a football right again, you'll never have the arm strength, blah blah blah, and then he comes out and puts up this list of numbers: a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP. Those are things that weren't supposed to happen with his shoulder injury, and I mean it did.
And thanks for bringing up the Dolphins and the doctors. I want to ask both of you, because this is not that straightforward. At least I don't think it is. Do you think if Drew Brees was on the Dolphins, he would still be in this Hall of Fame category instead of the Hall of Good category?
100%. I do. I mean, because look, there was talent. When you look at what Drew Brees did with what he had in New Orleans, and I'll give Sean Payton a nod. But, I mean, dude, there were years, the Ricky and Ronnie, right? I mean, you give Drew Brees, Ricky Williams, Ronnie Brown. You had Chris Chambers. You had talent in Miami that he could have done something with, and you would have built around it. I mean, I think Brees, no matter where he went, was destined to do this because the guy doesn't like hearing no, right? Yeah. So I think he was destined to.
I think credit to that. I think people would have come to play with him too. I don't think Miami would have been stuck with like a poor man's roster by any means. They had Chris Chambers, they had the 1-2 who essentially created the Wildcat and Ronnie Brown and ran it so successfully. I remember I was at the hospital one night watching him run up and down the Jets in a rain game. I think he had 180 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just Wildcat. So right there, being able to run a system like that preserves longevity in him. That's less he has to throw. That's less plays he has on the field, less hits he has to take. I mean, who knows? He could have played an extra couple years had he been in a system like that.
Look, I just because you mentioned the Wildcat, I got to tell you, man, 44 years old, Dolphin fan for over 30 years. I've never had a better feeling than the day that the Wildcat broke out, sitting in a sports bar in Baltimore, watching the Dolphins play the Patriots, and nobody knew what the hell was going on. Every head was turned toward the TV and just watching Ricky and Ronnie just destroy it. And the Patriots had no answer. That was the best football watching experience of my life.
Absolutely.
The only thing that's going to top it is a Dolphin Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on from Drew Brees, I have to ask EJ, because he's a Titans fan. Well, this picture on the screen looks like it was taken at the Titans Stadium. Do you know what happened during this game? I mean,
yeah, Michael Thomas broke the all-time receptions in a season with in that game. He threw it on. It was like a 2-yard. It was like the slant god. It was like a 2-yard hitch. It was like a 2-yard out route, and he hit him on Malcolm Butler. So
perfect. I was testing your Titans knowledge because Drew Brees looked, he looked really happy in this photo, man.
Oh, that's where that game ball is from. That's that all-time completion for all-time receptions for I think he had 141. Was it 142?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Well, this is an interesting one, and what's even more interesting is the fact that to this day you're still going to hear the Phillip Rivers rumors. That teams called him or whatever. I know last season we heard that the Saints called Phillip Rivers. I don't know if we'll still hear those rumors heading into this season, but either way, Phillip Rivers has his stats listed, has his career highlights and awards listed. Something that's interesting is the fact that Phillip Rivers, switched teams towards the end of his career, and it kind of hurt him. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. I want to hear what you guys have to say. We'll start with Jeremiah.
He's one of my all-time favorite quarterbacks in the league, just because of the competitive nature that he has, and the way that he talked like he's jawing nonstop. I mean, the way that this guy just wanted to win like a pit bull, I loved. But he's not a Hall of Famer, and I just, for me, I'm going to classify Hall of Fame as this: he made no marks in the playoffs, man. I mean, and we just talked about Drew Brees doing it with a lesser cast and other people. Phillip Rivers never did that, right? I mean, there's not a Super Bowl victory. There's not, that big playoff win. He switches teams to the Colts trying to get that little juice at the end, and it doesn't work. I love Phillip Rivers. He'll always be one of my favorite quarterbacks just because of the way he talked trash and the competitive nature, but I can't see it I can't see it in the Hall of Fame, man. That hurts to say because I love this dude.
This is where me and Jeremiah differ, because I don't think he's quite first ballot. I think in 2026, and that right after that 4-year span is. But I mean, the dude, he didn't have a heavy cast. He had Vincent Jackson when he was young. Vincent Jackson made more of a name for himself in Tampa than he did in San Diego. Antonio Gates was a stud, similar to Drew Brees, the tight end connection that he had. And outside of that, Denario Alexander, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Eddie Royal. Keenan Allen now has obviously flashed, right? Mike Williams flashed this past year.
He had Tomlinson. I mean, he had LT at his peak.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But when you look at the numbers he's put up that are extremely similar to Drew Brees' numbers, top 5 in league history for passing touchdowns and passing yards. Most games played without missing. You know what I mean? Like the durability. What's your best availability, right? We learned it from Pop Warner. And not to say that anyone that stays healthy is a Hall of Famer, but when you're healthy as you are, and you're able to put up the numbers that he put up, you don't put those up by accident, right? You're not top 5 in 2 categories like that by accident. A 95 career passer rating, top 12 in that category. You don't do that on accident, right? So I think the playoff record and the lack of Super Bowl appearance is literally his only knock. And if you want to say, well, he didn't run very well, who cares? Tom Brady didn't either, and he's still the greatest quarterback of all time. So if you want the knock to be Super Bowl appearances, wins, playoff appearances, wins, I can take that. That's fine. But I still think the top fives in passing, the top fives in touchdowns, top 12 in all-time passer rating, I think those are enough numbers to sneak him in. And again, comeback player of the year, Pro Bowl, I don't pay any mind to that kind of stuff, but I just think there's too much to ignore to not consider him, for me, Hall of Fame.
So if I take the Dolphin angle on this, would it be fair to say that Phillip Rivers is this generation's Dan Marino?
Sure.
I mean, right?
Different.
Danny lit up the scoreboard
Yep.
but didn't win a Super Bowl, didn't have that splash. I hope you're right, man. I do. I want to hear Phillip Rivers' Hall of Fame speech. That's what I want to hear.
And see, I'm a Hurricane fan, so we saw a ton of him at NC State, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got to see it obviously kind of build and grow a little bit from NC State to the Chargers, and then I saw him 2 times a year with the Colts and the Titans. Yeah. So to me, obviously the Colts, I think they could have been real contenders had they been a little bit healthier and had he had a weapon or two. T.Y. Hilton was never healthy. Michael Pittman just came along last year. But for me, it's, if it's on a 1 through 10 comfortability level of him getting the Hall of Fame, I can be a confident 7 or 8. I don't think he's like a surefire, but I would be A-okay if he was in the Hall of Fame.
I knew this was going to be an interesting conversation. We got our first player where we disagree with, and that's good.
But if you look at it too, we both agree we both want him in there, right?
Yeah.
But there's 2 arguments for it. There's a Super Bowl playoff argument, and then there's most games played without injury, comeback player of the year, 5th all time in touchdowns and passing yards, and top 12 all time in passer rating. So it's really if you're a fan of him or not, I think is what it boils down to.
Well, and like I said, he's got, for lack of a better term, he's got that dog in him.
Yes.
Like he's the dude that he will talk it and back it up and bark all day long.
Yep.
And I love it. Like he looked like he's having fun and being competitive on the football field always.
But
right?
and like you said, the talk, he always backed it up.
Always.
It didn't matter if he threw 4 picks. You were getting the same Phillip Rivers with 5 touchdowns as you were with 5 picks. It was this. I mean, that's almost a check in the Hall of Fame box.
It kind of is.
The fluidity you were getting with his personality. It was the same down 28 as it was up 28. That's what I loved about him.
That's nice.
Next up, we got Matt Ryan, who is going to the team that Phillip Rivers was just at.
Yeah, I know.
And similar to Russell Wilson, it's going to be Ryan's first time on a different team than he's been in the past, which has been the Falcons. And look, Matt Ryan is also going to be interesting, similar to Phillip Rivers, because Ryan had that Super Bowl where he could have won, but that 28-3 lead was no good. The Patriots came back and won that Super Bowl. I wonder if that's going to be a difference in your guys' arguments. I also wonder if the fact that Ryan still has a few seasons left in him is going to matter. So with that said, let's get into this conversation with Matt Ryan, who has the most consecutive NFL games with at least 200 passing yards. That record was at 64 games. We'll start with EJ here.
Yeah, he set the record for most passing yards in his first 13 seasons, most touchdowns in his first 13 seasons or 14 seasons. I think he needs an extremely solid, at least 3 more years-ish to really put himself. And I'm not saying he has to make a Super Bowl trip. I think he probably needs an AFC title appearance to bridge that gap of what happened in the Super Bowl. If his career were to stop today, right now, it would be hard for me to say yes. I know he's got an MVP. He had one of the best receivers, probably a top 8 or 10 all-time receiver in Julio Jones when healthy. Michael Turner was an animal. Devontae Freeman was an animal when healthy. He also had Tony Gonzalez at one point too, one of the best tight ends in all of football. past or present. So when you look at his personnel, you think he should, right? He maybe should even have a ring by now. I think that he's going to have to really solidify himself with Indy in that division and make some good runs. And pad the stats, of course. Top 5 in anything is going to get you heavy consideration for there. But for right now, he's just outside of it for me. He's Hall of really good, but he's not Hall of Fame.
But I'll tell you what gets me with Matt. Here's the deal. You got 13 seasons, right?
Yeah.
5 of those have been losing seasons.
Mm-hmm.
4 and 6 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I can't. I mean, he's got to do something in Indy. It's got to be like he needs a Matt Stafford moment. He needs that Matt Stafford if I moved and I won one. Because, I mean, dude, it's a different era of quarterbacks. It's so funny when we talk about top this, top that, top that. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, it wasn't, it wasn't quarterbacks didn't have it that easy, I say,
Yeah.
So
they're protected now. Longevity is key. Quarterback health is probably more important than anyone else's health out there, which I think is unfortunate because I think that it should be just health across the whole board. It doesn't matter the position you play, your health is just as important as the next. So, to credit that, quarterbacks they have clean pockets all the time. They don't have people coming at their feet. It's almost like it can be like practice reps in some occasions because they don't want a lot of funny things going on around the quarterbacks below the knee now. So, or even above the shoulder. So, Hall of really good, not Hall of Fame. Yeah, yep. I think he's above Hall of Good, but I don't think he's Hall of Fame yet.
Yep.
Moving on. This is, we're getting into this tough category now. Sorry, guys. I didn't give you a warning that it was going to go easier to harder.
Yeah, this is getting a little bit tougher now.
Big Ben just retired. I can't wait to hear his rumors that he's coming back. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think that's going to happen with him. But look, Big Ben is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Obviously, the Steelers were just a dynasty during his prime. And also, to say the least, I think I don't know if you guys agree with me, but the fact that he stayed with the Steelers his whole career is just amazing.
Yeah.
The Steelers organization is awesome that way.
And they, Mike Tomlin, even Cowell, they made him a focal point. It wasn't like Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, and it's like, hey, we're going to give you your money, but we're not going to give you pieces to perform. They have made sure that whether it's drafting Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, like obviously he came out of nowhere and kind of propelled himself, but from a defensive perspective, a lot of pressure was taken off of Big Ben because they performed so well defensively. 13, 15, 17-point games. There's not a lot of pressure. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't know about first ballot or not. But I do think that inevitably, because of the 2 Super Bowl wins, he's a 2-time passing NFL yards leader. The completion percentage or the passer rating at 93.5, which is, top 14, 15 all time. And the most career perfect passer ratings, I think he had 4, right? Yeah. 4 tied with Peyton. I just, he's got the Super Bowls. We can't argue that. He's got the playoff wins. We can't argue that. So I do think he's in, but it's not by very much.
Yeah. But by the way, he does have the lowest pass rating for a Super Bowl winning QB, which is interesting. But hey, the stats are there in both the regular season and postseason.
Hey, that Super Bowl against Seattle, that was all Willie Parker, him and Hines Ward, and Antoine Randall, that was all them. He didn't really have to do too much in that Super Bowl.
Yeah. As much as it hurt me to say that I didn't think Phillip Rivers would get in, it hurts me twice as much to say Roethlisberger is going to get in. Maybe it's Steeler fans that I deal with or something. I won't get into all the breadth of it, but dude, off the field, he's an awful human being. I'm not a fan of Ben Roethlisberger in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but he put up numbers, and those numbers are Hall of Fame. And yeah, just move on, man. I don't like to say it, but he's in.
Yeah, if you're doing it just from a football perspective,
yes,
Hall of Fame.
If you were looking at it from a sexual assault perspective, it'd be very different.
A groping women in the bathroom perspective, then
Right.
no, he can't get in.
Awful. Okay, yeah, move on.
All right, here we'll move on to someone who is still playing, and he seems like has many years left in him because he is coming off just a terrific season. But it's going to be interesting. I think this is going to be an easy yes. I'm going to just put that out there. But what's going to be interesting, and I don't think this is taking away from him being in the Hall of Fame, but it's just going to be interesting to see how he's going to perform this season because Devontae Adams is gone. And I don't know. The Packers just seem to not like helping him. And we know that's with the NFL draft. Hey, whatever the case is, Rodgers, similar to Big Ben, spent his whole career on the same team. I don't know if that's going to come to an end soon, but for the near future, Aaron Rodgers is a Green Bay Packer. EJ, let's start with you. Is Mr. number 12 like Tom Brady in the Hall of Fame or Hall of Good?
No, he's first ballot. The numbers say itself. The MVPs. If he didn't have a Super Bowl win, I think that would be his only knock. Similar to like what Phillip Rivers is. That's his biggest knock. But he takes a big hit because he has not had postseason success since their Super Bowl berth, since their Super Bowl win against they beat Arizona that year, right?
Yeah.
No, they beat Pittsburgh. They beat Pittsburgh. That was Roethlisberger's second Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He hasn't had any postseason. I think he's got a losing postseason record since that. So, the 104.3 passer rating all time, that's got to be up in the top 5 or 8, I would assume. I think he's a first ballot, but I think he still has a lot of work to do for outside Lambeau Field eyes to say, oh, yeah, first ballot, no doubt. I think he's got to have at least a Super Bowl appearance in his next however many years he has left. But I do think he's in. I think he's first ballot.
Yeah, I think he's in. I mean, when you look at it, just the 3-time MVP, 3rd all-time in passer rating, 7th in touchdowns, 9th in total wins. He's in. I mean, the Super Bowl cements it. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does. But he's kind of done this his entire career in Green Bay. Green Bay's never stacked the cupboard for Aaron Rodgers. They don't draft offensive players. They're using 2nd, 3rd round picks. And then Aaron finds a way to put up numbers. He's in.
Well, they got really lucky with the development of Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
They got really, really lucky with those two. Everyone else, Devontae Freeman was obviously built through the draft out of Fresno State. But they've never been the type to just accommodate him and say, oh, Ben, you want this? Exactly. Let's go get it for you. So, Aaron Rodgers, you want this? Let's go get it for you. So, I think he's in, but for me, that horrible playoff record and that long Super Bowl drought is like the only knock I have on his resume. Like literally the only, he's a 3-time MVP. Like it's not easy to get one of those, right? It's one player out of the league that gets one.
So speaking of being challenged, because Rodgers has been challenged his whole career in Green Bay because of the lack of help, this is a guy who's been challenged. Matthew Stafford, he is coming off the best season any quarterback can have. He won the Super Bowl, and he won it in his first year with the Los Angeles Rams. But before this past season, he dealt with and to say the least, an interesting and eventful, not really, career on the Detroit Lions. He kind of had the help because he had Calvin Johnson, but outside of Calvin Johnson, there was really nothing. But let's say this, Matthew Stafford is quite young in terms of, you guys are going to have to predict his future in the NFL in order to say is he going to make the Hall of Fame. But he is the youngest quarterback to throw for at least 5 touchdowns in a single game. And he was the first player in NFL history to complete 60% or more of all passes in each game in a season, which is impressive. So, look, you could tell me 2 things. If he ended his career now, is he making the Hall of Fame? And is he going to make the Hall of Fame at the end of his career? Because, again, he has a lot of years left in him, especially on the Los Angeles Rams. So let's start with Jeremiah here. Coming on
right now, it's a no, just based on what he has. And that's a shame because a lot of his stats really are tied to Detroit. I mean, Detroit is just a black hole. and he stayed there for as much as he could and just took the beatings. He still put up decent numbers, but his win-loss is awful. He'd never won a playoff game before last year. Right now, I'd say he's out. If he has another couple playoff runs with the Rams, then I think he's in. I think he's talented enough. I think he's got a big arm. He puts up numbers. But as of right now, you've still got a little more to prove.
Yeah, I think he's like Matt Ryan because he still has some time left to play. I think he's in that Hall of Really Good right now. The Super Bowl gets him to Hall of Good to Hall of Really Good, in my opinion. The crazy thing about Matthew Stafford is that in Detroit, every game when he came out under center, he was still able to lead the league in passing yards, and you knew who he was throwing to. Like, the guy's arm talent is out of this world. His football knowledge. He did the same thing with Cooper Kupp this year. Before they got OBJ and then after Robert Woods, everyone knew time after time it was going to Cooper Kupp. And he was still able to get it to him because of the arm strength, because of the placement. I think, like Jeremiah said, the knock is that he tried so hard to make Detroit something, and obviously opposite of Ben Roethlisberger, this is one of the best humans you'll ever meet off the field. Yep. Easily. Character value, home value, all those things, the way he treats his wife, all those things. Like, he's top notch when it comes to, hey, I want a good individual leading my football club, right? I think that, like Jeremiah said, we need another maybe NFC championship type playoff run or two, which that could happen next year with Seattle falling apart. I think their division may be relatively light. The confusion with Garoppolo and Trey Lance, they could maybe walk their way through that division next year. With DeAndre Hopkins being suspended the first 6 games and no Christian Kirk out there. So I think if it were to end today, I think he's at the Hall of Really Good. I think with another solid 2, like Matt Ryan, 2, maybe 3 years, make some good playoff runs, pad your stats a little bit. At the end of the day, I think he will be. Right now, no.
Yep, and Stafford, I think, definitely has at least 4 more seasons left in the tank. I mean, born in Tampa, of course he's going to have good values, right? I'm just kidding. Yeah. But hey, he's 34 years old. He's going to have a few more seasons left. And look, the Rams aren't that bad. I mean, they got Allen Robinson. Cooper Kupp is coming off his best season. He has the weapons, and if you say, he's going to walk to the division, I think he has one of the easiest paths in terms of moving up from that Hall of Good to Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Ryan doesn't have as easy as a path.
Well, it's because of the Super Bowl, in my opinion. The Super Bowl, it keeps him, like, if we're at Hall of Fame here, Hall of Good, Hall of Really Good, he's in between the two right there. If he had won 3 or 4 playoff games in Detroit, I would be okay with, as of right now, him being Hall of Fame. But I just think that him trying so hard to make Detroit relevant really, regardless of the passing yards and stuff, really hindered his postseason career. And I think that's what would elevate him into being right now Hall of Fame.
Well, not only that, but just quickly in it, his all-time record, if you're going to be in the Hall of Fame, you have to be over 500. He has a losing record right now.
Yeah,
a losing record in the NFL. I can't see you in a Hall of Fame with a losing record. You got to get over 500.
And what people will chalk that up to is it's like, well, he was with Detroit. He was with a trash fire, and I think that's going to be a legit argument. But it was also his choice to sign extensions. So a level of accountability has to be taken. I know the money's there, but he could have probably got out of Detroit after his first 4 or 5 years in there.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We got QB who I'll admit I haven't watched that much in my career. Tony Romo, guys, I want to be a future broadcaster, so I love listening to Tony Romo on the mic, but I haven't watched that much of him on the field. So I'm gonna count on you guys to really break down his game. You could look at his stat image. I mean, it wasn't as large as the other quarterbacks that we've seen. So I kind of think I know what the answer is going to be, but I don't know. I haven't watched that much of him. Again, I've heard him more on the broadcast mic than I've seen him play. EJ, let's start with you. Tony Romo.
If we're talking about, like, if we put a performance aside and we were just talking about football knowledge, I think he's Hall of Fame. The performance I don't even think he's Hall of Good, to be honest with you. I think he's just under that. the muffed PAT hold or field goal hold in Seattle. Tony Romo never showed up when he needed to, postseason, regular season, whatever it was. I don't even think he's Hall of Good. I think he's just under that bar.
So I'm going to go different in a different way. Isaac, as you said, you want to be in broadcasting. Tony Romo is a Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer in broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll be a Hall of Fame broadcaster.
Yeah, he will. Absolutely.
Not a quarterback. He just crumbled every time it mattered, man. I'll never forget the drop PAT and then the all kinds of little fumble here and there. No, he's a great broadcaster, tremendous knowledge, not as a quarterback.
Yeah, and one interesting stat. Tony Romo has the highest career passer rating of any quarterback that has not won a Super Bowl as a starter, which is interesting. But yeah, like I said, he didn't necessarily step up in the big moments, and that's why he never made a Super Bowl.
Yeah, like I said, you look at the 4-time Pro Bowls. I don't care if it's Tom Brady, if it's Tony Romo. I throw Pro Bowls out the window. I really don't think they equate too much because of the effort that's involved in them and the fan voting that goes along with them. It's essentially a jersey sale Pro Bowl, like who's the most popular, right? Not necessarily who performs the best at their position.
So next up, we're going to go to a quarterback who is still playing in the NFL. However, his days as the starting quarterback are now over. His name is Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was the first rookie quarterback to win 2 playoff games. He is the fastest quarterback to record 5 touchdowns in a game. It took him 16 minutes. And obviously, Joe Flacco is a Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP. However, that may be about it. His days as an elite quarterback are long over, and he's been bouncing around different teams as backup quarterbacks these past few seasons. So you really just have to judge his career on the Ravens, which lasted 10 seasons. Jeremiah, we'll let you start off this one. What do you think about this former Super Bowl MVP?
I'm in the state of Delaware, so everyone here would tell you that Joe Flacco is fantastic and probably deserves the Hall of Fame. Joe Flacco, to me, will be famous for the arm punt. I've never seen a guy throw a ball higher to go deep. It's ridiculous. No, I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame simply because he was carried by that defense. He Trent Dilford his way to a Super Bowl. We might as well be having that argument. Flacco did nothing outside of that. And a couple seasons in Baltimore, he was what held them back instead of what moved them forward. Flacco to me, no way. Sorry.
Do you put him in your Hall of Good or do you put him below Hall of Good?
I put him below Hall of Good. Okay. I really think a couple seasons with a really good defense and he played his way through it. And then all these backup jobs, he didn't go in as straight backup. I mean, they went in with an idea of quarterback competition. And Joe ended up as the backup. So that's true. He never reached that level again.
If you look at the quarterbacks we've talked about, aside from Michael Vick, because, he came back out of jail and he was essentially given an opportunity to come back on a roster, there's a reason why he was a second string, right? None of the other quarterbacks on this list fell from a free agency perspective and were second on a roster. Mm-hmm. Joe Flacco, if we were to say, hey, is Joe Flacco a Hall of Famer based on a 4-game stretch? He's a Hall of Famer based on the 4-game stretch he had to go win a Super Bowl. Outside of that, no. I don't. I think he's just below Hall of Good. I think he's Hall of Serviceable. I think he's a quarterback that can do some things for you. But no, I don't put him in the Hall of Serviceable is the best I can give him. Regardless of the Super Bowl MVP, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, those guys wheelchaired him into that. I know he had a great 4 games, and I'm going to give him credit for that. But to me, 4 games doesn't cement the longevity or lack thereof from a starting perspective. Joe Flacco's career, no, Hall of Serviceable for me.
We're gonna move on to someone who also won a Super Bowl, but he won it in amazing fashion because he's now Tom Brady's biggest enemy, and he's not even playing anymore. His name is Eli Manning, the New York Giants. Legend, you have to watch what you say here because you can't offend any of the New York fans. So just be careful. EJ, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I give him Hall of Fame. I know he leads in what interceptions, most interceptions thrown. But you can't deny at 2 times he was the best player in a Super Bowl. Take the last name Manning out of it. If you look at those Super Bowl games, the game that mattered the most, right? Did you guys see the pass to Mario Manningham that was on the sideline that dropped over the shoulder? There's probably maybe less than a handful of quarterbacks that make that throw under those lights, and Eli Manning was one of them. I think it's unfortunate that the diva style of OBJ kind of. I think that it was a locker room cancer at that point, and it kind of deflated. He was at the back end. I think he lost motivation, which is that's it is what it is. I think he was looking more forward to retirement. But I give him it just barely. I think he just barely gets in. No first ballot, but yeah, I think he's inevitably going to be a Hall of Famer.
But Hall of Famers equal big moments. Knocking off the Patriots when they were undefeated,
yes,
will always be huge. Two-time Super Bowl MVP. The knock that people used to say about Eli was like he's always got that aw shucks. Well, that worked in New York, man. Nothing shook him. New York tried to shake him. The papers, the media, the fans, everybody. And Eli just came out and performed.
Yeah.
And 2 Super Bowls with 2 Super Bowl MVPs, last name Manning or not, he's in, man.
If he had gotten the 2 Super Bowls and no MVP in either one of them, right. It would be a strong argument in my opinion. But the 2 Super Bowls he was in, he MVP both of them. Justin Tuck had a heck of a game, one of them too. Mm-hmm. So I mean, and I know the defensive MVP. I know the MVP wouldn't go to a defender anyway, but there was a pretty heavy cast on that field. So yeah, without the 2 Super Bowl MVPs, I think we're having a different argument. But because of them, I think they kind of cement him in there. And of course, like Jeremiah said, knocking off that 17-0 Patriots team. Mm-hmm. Only other team to do that was the 72 Dolphins. So, and they weren't beat, and so he beat the only other one that got to do that. So yeah, I give him a Hall of Fame nod.
And you do have to take off that last name Manning because the next Arch Manning is coming up, and he is the next Hall of Famer. So,
yeah.
And by the way, before we get on to our last quarterback, I want to personally apologize to Jared Goff, Tua, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, every other quarterback who was not on here, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Blake. I can go on and on and on. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, yes, you too. I'm sorry. Congrats on your retirement. Okay, so now we are on to our last quarterback.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is in my hall of I give you all I got every play. That's what
he's also in the Hall of Beards too.
He never did it the flashiest, but if you just wanted someone on the field that was going to give you 110% every play, regardless of the success rate, it was Ryan Fitzpatrick. Easy, no doubt about it.
Yep. All right, here we go.
Oh, yes. Let's shut the show down.
You know what?
That's it, right?
Yeah, that's it. Shut the show down. Yeah. Yes.
Look, I will give you this, Isaac. You mentioned this earlier, right? How people can go from liked, or hated to liked. I despised Tom Brady for many, many years, as I should. I love Brady on Tampa. He makes me laugh, dude. He's so funny. If you watch his Instagrams and the other stuff, dude, him playing golf and talking trash to the other quarterbacks. Did you see that? He's like,
exactly. And that's why I brought that up, Jeremiah, with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson posted a TikTok with Jerry Jeudy in the Broncos locker room, and he never acted like that before. He was rapping or something, and it was just a different side of him. And that's what happens when you switch teams. And I think that's what happened with Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think Tom Brady got out from under the micromanaging shadow of Bill Belichick, and he's finally, the last handful of years of his career, he's finally going to be able to be himself, and that's what you're seeing on the golf course. I mean, it's not even a question. Hall of Fame, yes.
He completed a pass with the Super Bowl trophy from boat to boat.
From boat to boat.
While lit on tequila. The man's a Hall of Famer.
Yes. That was the only pass he needed to complete to be a Hall of Famer, and he did.
Hey, there is one knock on Brady, He still has a losing record in one stadium in the NFL. Like he actually has a losing record when he comes to one place.
Hard Rock.
We got him every year down there, which was awesome.
We did. And we didn't just get him. We literally got the whole Patriots. Bill Belichick came down to Miami, and he's like, what's going on? I know we knew what was going on when Brian Flores was the coach. Brian Flores just took everything away from him. But no, the Dolphins had the Patriots number, but Tom Brady, we had to save him for last because
Dude, he's the
It's
GOAT.
obvious.
He's
Yeah.
the greatest that's
Yeah.
ever done this.
And he's not done. And he's not.
No.
He got to retire and he was like, man, I'm so fucking bored. Like, can I go do? And I think we probably got another this season. And depending on how they do this season, if they make a Super Bowl appearance, I think he ends on a Super Bowl win some way, somehow. I think within the next 2 to 3 years, he wins another Super Bowl, and then that's going to be, his carry off into the wind is going to be a Super Bowl win.
They talk about like the zone or whatever, but I bet every one of us have something, whether it was in a video game or something else, that where you just feel like you just leveled up, right? Like all of a sudden you're seeing a game that nobody else is seeing, right? You're 3 or 4 steps ahead of everything. That's it. That's how it looks like Brady plays. Brady plays on a whole different plane. Like he understands everything that's going to happen and and anything that could come across.
Yeah.
He's chess when everybody else is checkers. I mean, he's really on a different level, man.
I think to credit that, it's like when a guy has played 20 years, what can you throw at him that he hasn't seen? And then what can you counter with that he hasn't seen? Nothing. So it's almost like basketball, right? If you're right-handed dominant, I'm gonna make you go left, and then if you try to get back to your right, I'm gonna keep you to your left. That's what he does to these guys. He puts them on their weak hand, and he forces them to go with their weak hand and create a play off of the weak hand. Dude, he's so freaking good at it, man. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Well, look, and let's just since he was there, it's not just football. This man is blessed on every level.
Oh, yeah.
We have seen his wife, right?
Are we talking about Giselle?
Literally.
Yeah.
And I said the one year that I realized Brady was just different. It was the Kentucky Derby. So it's literally you see him at the Kentucky Derby with Julian Edelman and everybody else, and then he takes a plane from there to go to the Manny Pacquiao or it was a big fight in Vegas. And I'm like, I'm picturing this guy's life. I'm like, he wakes up, he kisses Giselle, jumps on the plane, goes to a box at the Derby, jumps back in the plane, goes to the fight in Vegas, and ends up back in bed with Giselle. Nobody should have life that good.
Yeah, congrats, Tom. You outdid us all. I hope you're happy.
Yeah, really. I mean, like, what the fuck? How?
Congrats, Tom.
Something bad, just tell me his tire blew out or something. I'm like, something bad needs to happen.
Yeah, can he like stub a toe or something?
Yeah,
can we?
Something.
Yeah, nothing detrimental, but like, can he spill his water? Can he spill wine on himself?
Make him human. Just
something, man.
Human.
Something.
But man, gosh. This is the time.
Hey, this is an amazing show, guys. Stay tuned for more shows like this. We're gonna do this Hall of Fame or Hall of Good show with other positions, wide receiver and running back. Just stay tuned. And stay tuned for any content FL Teams puts out. FLTeams.com, your go-to one-stop shop for all Florida sports coverage. Follow FL Teams on social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. And stay tuned for some upcoming podcasts we have. Stay tuned on YouTube for our YouTube shorts. We're now doing that. And we're also doing reactions to the Lightning Rangers games. And just stay tuned, everyone. Florida is the best state for sports. And we'll just keep you covered as we go. Again, for myself, Isaac Edelman, Jeremiah Hensley, and EJ Farbman, thanks everyone for watching. Have a good rest of your day.